All right, so it's winter time, and with winter comes salt for those of us in the Midwest and our friends up in Canada. So for those of you in California, this really doesn't mean a lot to you. However, if you're used to a lot of road debris and kicking that up and maybe doing damage to your car, perhaps this is something you want to think about as well. Of course, I'm talking about mud flaps, and at the moment, there are little to no options available. As a matter of fact, in my 10,000 mile review, which wasn't that long ago, I mentioned that there were no mud flaps available at the time. I was corrected by a subscriber, and he put me in contact with a company in Canada that does make mud flaps for the Tesla Model Y. As far as I am aware, at this moment, they are the only ones making mud flaps for the Tesla Model Y. So your options are beyond limited. You basically have one option right now. Of course, that'll change over time and you'll have more options, which will be great. Then you can choose different styles, different price points, and other considerations. But for now, with just one option, that's what we're going to cover today. So the company that makes these mud flaps is called EV Mud Flaps, and like I said, they're in Canada. Now at this time, they make these mud flaps and it's $130, which at first doesn't sound too bad, but I'm gonna show you some things about these mud flaps that I'm not entirely crazy about. But again, keep in mind, you don't have options today. So if you really need mud flaps and you wanna protect your car, especially as we're now into winter, so this is pretty much the only option you have. So here's what you're going to get for your $130. So they ship you these mud flaps and they're all put together, and you can see it's just a flat panel that you put on there. There's no shape to it other than the contours of the car. And I'll show you what these look like installed on the car, but pretty basic, I guess. Traditionally, when you look at mud flaps, there's usually some options that have kind of like a molded design to make it look more natural on the car. These are gonna look more like, I don't know, those rally cars or something like that. The material is more of a plastic material than a rubber material. This material should actually hold up fairly well for the type of abuse we're talking about, whether that's rocks or salt or whatever. So on the plus side, these should hold up pretty well. On the downside, of course, is style, because these don't look extremely great, but functional, absolutely. These are going to be very functional. So as we look, they come pre-labeled. This set over here is for the rear and this set's for the front. Now, in addition, they're going to send you all the clips that you need, and with these clips, there's a little warning on the back, and it says that these clips need to be warmed up before you install them. So it says, heat them up in hot water or use a heat gun, and we'll just be using a heat gun. Just pour them in a cup, run your heat gun on them for maybe 5 seconds, and that should get them nice and loose. So with these, they can be pretty stiff, which is why you want to do that. So as we look here at the front wheel wells, there are 2 clips here that we need to pull out. And those 2 clips are right here, and then there's another one right back here. So there's a little slot that you can stick a tool and kind of pry up on. All right, so once you get these clips out, just be careful, they do pop and they fly. So there's just those 2 to get out. And then now this mud flap is going to line up with those. All right, so these 2 bigger holes will be for the clips, and then there's 3 additional holes, and you're supposed to use screws for those. And the reason is, over here on this part of the car, there are no holes for push clips, so those have to be screwed in. So you're actually going to tap into this piece right here. All right, so now we're going to get our first piece pushed in. Another clip. All right, grab the second clip, find the hole, and push them in. All right, so that's how you're gonna mount them. It's pretty simple actually, except you still need to add these 3 screws. But I'm gonna show you something before I do that. Okay, so before I put those screws in, I just wanna show you what you're looking at. So this covers quite a bit of the side, which is actually a good thing because these wheels stick out quite a bit and throw up a lot of stuff on the side of the car. So if you have a Model Y, or you've seen that on our reviews, these tires stick out pretty far. So you can see this is covering that entire tire, which is what it's supposed to do. So that's a good thing. However, it looks pretty big. And, you know, does it look natural? I don't know. It's a lot. So I'm kind of torn on it because I think for looks, it's not the greatest. However, for protection, you're going to be hard pressed to find something that's going to protect as well as this does because it's so big. And then kind of stepping back here. So here on the back, it's the same concept. There's just these two tabs that we're going to tap into. One right here and one right here. All right, and same kind of thing as the front. As you can see, there's multiple holes. There's only 2 of them for the push clips, and then you are going to add a screw here, and then these 2 screws here. So again, you're going to have to tap into this molding on the car. So let's go ahead and put this on. Okay, so now we've got this rear one installed. You can start to see what it looks like. Again, really good coverage. Comes all the way out past where the tire is. There's a better view of it. And again, a lot of coverage. But again, it looks kind of big. So as you can see, I mean, will this work? You bet it'll work. This will actually work really, really well. Okay, so again, when we look at these, I think from a practicality standpoint, these score high marks. Probably going to be hard to beat how well these are probably going to work because the coverage area is so big. Also, it does not allow the opportunity for a whole bunch of trap material because it kind of edges along the corners of these wheel wells. So it doesn't have a bunch of pockets. Now there can still get stuff behind it, but not a lot. I think that overall, if you need mud flaps, these are going to work really, really well. The downfall is that once you place these, you're not necessarily going to be able to remove them. You can, but you have to put some holes in the side of this trim here. So once you put those holes in there, this kind of becomes a permanent application. And you know, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is completely up to you. But when I originally got these, I was thinking I'd put them on and just use them for the winter time. And then once winter has passed, take them off. But once you put these on, you're not going to want to take them off because of those holes you're going to create to be able to install these. Now, because of the way that these install, you can't just put a couple of clips in the bottom. This thing will flap around a lot. So that's not going to be secure. It could create damage if it rips off. So you do have to install these screws on top of just those push clips. So unfortunately, because of that, this is not a temporary solution. For those of you who need mud flaps, again, I think that this is a really good option, although in my opinion, a pretty costly option for what you get. Again, it's a pretty thin wafer kind of plastic material for 130 bucks. I don't know. Looking at how these things would be laser cut, it's probably not a whole lot of waste, but I don't know. Everybody has their own opinion on things like this, and I am still kind of torn on whether I'm going to go ahead and install those holes and put these on or not. The other thing to keep in mind, this question I'm sure is probably already in the comment section of what's the impact on range? I have no idea, but these are pretty big surface area, so it's probably going to have some drag. I can't imagine there's going to be like a bunch of wind noise or anything like that, but it could potentially have an impact on range, although if it did, it would be very minimal. So I wouldn't let that persuade your decision on whether to get these or not. And if you do get them, I think that you'll be satisfied now knowing exactly what you're getting. These are going to work really, really well. They're just not going to look the greatest. Now that said, because there's so much black trim on this car, they do blend pretty well. So although I have said that they're kind of an eyesore, they kind of blend in pretty well. So it starts to be hard to notice they're even there. So if you can see behind me, you can obviously see this little piece shooting out, but when you walk around the car or from a distance, they don't stick out. So that's kind of nice. They blend in well with the black wheels and the black trim. and the black wheel wells and tires, all that stuff. So it blends pretty well, helps to hide it a little bit. So there you have it. As of right now, this is the only option that I'm aware of in getting mud flaps for your car. And now that we're in winter and you may actually have to have mud flaps, it may be a requirement for you to have mud flaps so that you don't tear your car up. This is right now the only option you have. And for 130 bucks, I will say you are likely to get very good coverage. So that's it for us. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that this was helpful, especially if you've come across these and weren't quite sure. This is kind of what they look like. So I hope that that's been helpful. If you did like this video, give it the thumbs up. If you haven't already, of course, subscribe as we continue to post content regularly. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll catch you next time.